Hi there, Mr. Wright here. Welcome to this walkthrough of the Edexcel IGCSE Maths Paper 1H from January 2023. If you'd like a copy of the question paper, you can download it via the link in the description. And once you've had a go at the paper and you've watched the walkthroughs as you would like to, then you will find at the end of this film a short film showing you the grade boundaries and showing you how to calculate what sort of grade you might have been looking at were you to have sat this set of papers. Right, I hope you find the film useful. If you do, please hit the like button. And if you've got any questions or you'd like any extra help with any of the topics, please do leave me a comment and I will respond. Good luck with the paper. Question 1 is all about finding an estimate for the mean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use mid-mad. I'm going to find the midpoints and then I'm going to multiply, add, and divide. So the midpoints are 6, 18, 30, 42, and 54. So now I'm going to go 6 times 11. I'm doing the multiplying bit now. 18 times 25, 30 times 23, 42 multiplied by 15, and 54 times 6. So I've multiplied. Now I'm going to add those up on my calculator. I get 2,160. And now I'm going to divide. What am I going to divide by? I'm going to divide by the number of students, which in this case is 80. So an estimate for the mean length of time the student spent dancing is 27 minutes. Question 2, I need to solve this equation. I'm going to start by multiplying out the left-hand side. 3 2s are 6, minus 3 4s gives me minus 12x. Copy down the right. Now this is an equation with unknowns on both sides. See which side has the least x's and get rid of them. The left-hand side has minus 12x, that's the least x's. And to get rid of minus 12x, I'm going to add 12x to both sides. Leaves me with 6 on the left and 5 plus 4x on the right. Now I get the x's on their own by subtracting 5 from both sides. Leaves me with 1 equals 4x, or 4x equals 1. Divide both sides by 4, and x equals 1 divided by 4 is 1 over 4. So x is a quarter. Question 3, we're going to construct a perpendicular bisector of the line AB. So I open my compass at least half the length of the line. Now from B, I draw an arc up here and another arc down there. And from A, you put the compass in. Don't change the setting on your compass. Another arc and another arc. You can put your compass to one side now. Take a ruler and a pencil. Carefully line up your ruler on these points here. Join them right through. And there is a perpendicular bisector of the line AB. Question 4 is all about a pentagon. And I need to find the size of this missing angle x. I know all the other angles. Well, I know that the angles in a pentagon, because it's got 5 sides, add up to 3 times 180. So the angles in a pentagon add up to 540. So to find the size of that missing angle, I'm simply going to do the total of all the angles, 540, subtract the angles which I'm told, which will just leave me with the size of x. And so that leaves me with 129 degrees for x. Question 5 is all about ratio. I'm told that there are green, orange, and yellow sweets. So green to orange to yellow. Now I'm told there are 280 sweets in the box. Hang on to that for a minute. But the number of green to the number of orange is 2 to 3. So I'm going to write 2 to 3 here. And I'm also told that the number of orange to the number of yellow is 1 to 5. So 1 to 5. So in order to help me do this question, I'm going to change this 1 to 5 and I'm going to call it 3 to 15, because now I can say 2 to 3 to 15. So the ratio of green to orange to yellow is 2 to 3 to 15. And now I can get on and answer the question. It tells me there are 280 sweets in the box, and I'm asked to work out how many green there are. Well, my ratios at the moment total to 20, and I'm told that there's a total of 280 sweets. So that's been multiplied by 14, so each of these ratios would be multiplied by 14. I'm only asked how many green sweets there are, so I just need to look in the green column. 2 times 14 is 28. So there are 28 green sweets. Question 6, percentages. Now in this first question, Shane bought a car for 32,000. And Teresa also bought a car. Now Teresa, she paid £18,000 deposit plus 14 times 1,160. So altogether, she paid a total of 34,240. Now in this question it says Teresa paid more for her car than Shane. Yes, I agree with that. Work out how much more she paid as a percentage of the amount that Shane paid. Well, how much more did she pay? She paid 34,240 and Shane paid 32,000. So Teresa has paid £2,240 more. And the question asks me to give that as a percentage of the amount that Shane paid. So that is a percentage of 32,000. So 2,240 over 32,000 multiplied by 100. And so my calculator tells me that that is 7%. Question 6b is another percentage question. So Kylie bought a van. I don't know what she bought it for. Let's put that here. After a year, the value of the van has changed, and now the van is worth $39,865. During the year, the value of the van decreased by 15%. To decrease something by 15%, I multiply it by 0.85, so that's my multiplier. If I were going forwards from the beginning here to the end, I'd multiply it by 0.85. In this case, I'm told the value of the van after the decrease, so I need to go backwards. So I'm going to need to do 39,865 divided by 0.85. And that gives me an answer of 46,900. So that's how much the van was worth when she bought it. Question 7, probability. Let's have a look. You've got the probabilities of the person choosing different types of book. Now we know those probabilities have to add up to 1, don't we? So we know that 0.24 plus 0.40 plus 3x plus x must equal 1. Well, that means that 4x must equal 0.36. So x must be 0.09. So now I know the probability of the person choosing a thriller, and 3 times that, the probability of the person choosing the mystery. And now those probabilities add up to 1. Good. Now let's have a look at the question. It tells me that 48 members chose comedy. 48, right. 0.24 multiplied by what is 48? 48 divided by 0.24. I'm multiplying by 200 here. There must be 200 members. How many people answered mystery books? Well, the probability of choosing a mystery book is 0.27, and there are 200 people taking part. So 0.27 times 200 means that 54 of the members answered mystery books. Now, looking at this question, question number 8, I suspect I'm going to need to use some Pythagoras because I've got a right angle triangle there, or maybe some trigonometry, and also some of my circle formulas. But let's have a look at the question. We've got triangle ABC inside a semicircle. Okay, AB is the diameter. Okay, I agree with that. I'll call it D. Right, I've got some angles and some lengths. I'm asked to work out the perimeter of the semicircle. Well, I really need to know the diameter, because then I can use the formula C equals pi times the diameter to get at the circumference of the circle. So how am I going to work out that diameter? Well, that's a right-angled triangle, isn't it? I know 50 here. 18 is the adjacent, and the D there is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to use cos, and I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. So my hypotenuse, which is D, will be the adjacent divided by cos of 50. So the diameter is 28.003. Okay, now I'm not asked for the diameter, I'm asked for the perimeter of the semicircle. So that's going to be the length of the arc from A all the way to B, and also to complete the perimeter of the shape, I'm going to need to add that length from B to A. So my perimeter is going to look like this. The perimeter is going to be half the circumference, that's pi times 28.003 over 2, that's the length of the arc from A to B, plus the diameter to take me back from point B to A to complete the perimeter. So if I put that lot in my calculator, I get 71.9900 and so on, and I'm asked to put my answers correct to two significant figures. So the answer for the perimeter to two significant figures is 72 centimetres. Question 9, standard form. First of all, write 6.25 times 10 to the minus 4 as an ordinary number. Well, it's going to be 6.25 divided by 10 4 times, isn't it? So I'm going to move the decimal point 4 times, once over the 6, leaves me with 3 more zeros. So there's my answer to A. Right, now for B, I'm afraid to say that I'm simply going to put this whole expression into my calculator and press equals and see what happens. When I do that, I get the answer 25 million. 25 with 6 zeros. It says I need to give my answer in standard form, so that's 2.5 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's question 9. Question 10. First thing I need to do is to factorise this quadratic expression. There's no common factor, so I'm simply going to go straight to writing it in terms of two brackets. I know my numbers multiply to a negative, so one of them's a plus and one of them's a negative. Multiply to minus 48, that could be 6 and 8, couldn't it? And if it were 6 and 8, I've got to have a difference of minus 2 there. So I'm going to have the minus the 8 and the plus the 6. 10b, write down the inequality. Well, x has to be less than 3, doesn't it? But I see that this is solid, so it's x is less than or equal to 3, rather than just x is less than 3. Solve the inequality. Right, I'm going to solve this just like an equation. I've got w's on both sides, so I'm going to see which side has the least w's, the left, and get rid of them. To get rid of 7w, I minus 7w. So I'm going to do that from both sides, of course. Leaves me with 6 is greater than 5w plus 14. Get the w's on their own. Minus 14 from both sides gives me minus 8 is greater than 5w. I'm going to turn that the other way around. 5w is less than minus 8. And now I'll divide both sides by 5. So w is less than minus 8 over 5, which you might have written as minus 1 3/5, or even minus 1.6. And that is the end of question 10. 11. Now, the first thing that we need to do here is to work out which line is which. So I'm going to start off by looking at this line here. Now, I see that line has the point 0, 6. So I just need to see which of these equations is satisfied by x is 0 and y is 6. And the answer is that that's the top one. So that line is the line 2x plus y equals 6. Right, next, let's sort out the line just above it. Let's sort out this line here. Now this line has got the point 2, 0 on it. So which of my remaining equations will be satisfied by x is 2 and y is 0? It's going to be this bottom one here. So this line has the equation 3y plus 2x equals 4, which means by a process of elimination that this line has the equation 2y equals 5x plus 1. But you might have divided both sides by 2, and then you could have looked at the gradient and the y-intercept to identify that line. Right, now I've identified which line is which, I simply need to specify my inequalities. Right, let's have a look at this first line that we looked at before, this one. I see I've shaded beneath the line. So the relevant inequality is going to be 2x plus y not equals 6, but is less than or equal to 6. And it's less than or equal because the line is solid rather than dashed. Let's look at this line now. I've shaded above that line. So I'm going to need my values of 3x plus 2y to be greater than or equal to 4. And now let's look at my third line, this one here. I've shaded beneath the line here, so I'm going to need my values of 2y to be less than or equal to the values of 5x plus 1. And there are my 3 inequalities. And that is question 11 complete. Question 12 is all about indices or powers and the rules of indices, the laws of indices, but it has a misprint in the second part, so I've corrected the question paper in my black ink there. Let's have a look at 12a. I know when I multiply expressions in the same base, then I add the powers, I add the indices. So m is going to be a half plus 2/5. Well, a half plus 2/5 is 9/10. So m is 9/10. And let's have a look at this second one here. 5 to the power of minus 10 divided by 5 to the power of minus 4. Well, I know when I divide, I subtract the indices. So I'm going to have minus 10 minus minus 4. That's minus 10 plus 4, so it's minus 6. So the answer to that is 5 to the power of minus 6. And so n will be minus 6. And that is question 12 complete. Question 13. I need to expand and simplify this expression. 3x times by 2x minus 5 squared. And that means 3x times 2x minus 5 times 2x minus 5. I'm going to copy down the 3x and multiply those two brackets together. So 2x times the second bracket. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times minus 5 is minus 10x. Minus 5 now, multiplied this by the second bracket. Minus 5 times 2x is minus 10x. Minus 5 times minus 5 is plus 25. Before I multiply out this bracket, let's just tidy it up because I've got 4x squareds and minus 10x and minus 10x gives me minus 20x altogether. And then I've got my plus 25. And now I can multiply out that bracket. 3x times 4x squared, 12x cubed, minus 60x squared, plus 3 times 25 is 75x. And that is question 13 complete. Question 14. We have to complete the table of values for these x values given this formula for y. So if x is a half, then we'll have 2 divided by a half multiplied by 5 minus 1 divided by a half. Now you can put that in your calculator carefully, or you can know that 2 divided by a half is 4 multiplied by 5 minus 2, which gives me 4 3s, which is 12 here. And similarly, for when x is 2, you're going to have 2 over 2 multiplied by 5 minus 1 over 2. 2 over 2 is 1. Multiplied by 4.5 gives me 4.5 here. Right, on the grid, draw the graph from 0.5 to 5 for values of x. Now we need to be careful of the scale here because they're bound to try and catch us out. So let's have a look at that carefully. So we've got x is a half and y is 12. Okay, that's fine. Here we go. X is 1, y is 8. X is 2, y is 4.5. Now be careful here. Do I put it here? Do you know I don't, because that's 5. I need to put my point here at 4.5. Right, if x is 3, then y is 3.1. Right, that's 3. Now 1 square up is going to be 3.2. So I need to clearly put it in the right place there for 3.1. Okay, and now I've got x is 4 and y is 2.4, so that's going to be 2 smaller squares above the 2 for 2.4. And then I've got x is 5 and y is 1.9, which is going to be, again, I'm going to need to be careful, it's going to be here, not at 2.0 and not at 1.8. And now I can join my points with a nice smooth curve. There we go. That is question 14 complete. Question 15. 9 cards, each with a number or a letter. This looks like probability to me. Right, he takes one card and keeps it. Then he takes another card. Complete the probability tree diagram. Right, well, first of all, of the 9 cards, 2 of them have got numbers. So the probability initially of him choosing a number is 2 out of 9, and the probability of him choosing a letter is 7 out of 9. So when he takes his first card, the probability of choosing a number is 2/9, and of choosing a letter is 7/9. Great. Now let's imagine that he takes his first card and it's a number. He keeps it, remember? So there's only one more number left out of the 8 cards, and there are 7 letters left out of the 8 cards. Now let's go back to the beginning. Let's imagine that his first card he takes is a letter, so we're here now. That means that there are only 6 letters left out of the 8 cards now, and there are still 2 numbers left out of 8. So that is the probability tree diagram completed. Right, now part B asks us to work out the probability that each of the 2 cards has a number. So it's asking me to work out the probability of getting number followed by number. And you'll remember that you multiply these probabilities, so it's going to be 2/9, the probability of getting the first card a number, multiplied by 1/8, which is going to give me 2 out of 72, which cancels to 1 out of 36. So that's my answer for B. Now, what about part C? Work out the probability that there will be 1 card with a number on it and 1 card with a letter on it. So they could be in either order, of course. So I'm being asked to find the probability of either getting number letter or letter number. So I'm being asked for the probability of ending up here or here. Well, the probability of ending up with a number and then a letter is 2/9 multiplied by 7/8. And the probability of ending up with a letter followed by a number is 7/9 multiplied by 2/8. So you work both of those out and you add them together. And if you do that on your calculator, you'll get the answer 28 out of 72, or perhaps already cancelled down to 7 out of 18, 7/18. And that's the answer to part C. Question 16. Right, there's lots of information on the diagram, and I am being asked to find out the length of DE, which I'll call A. Now, looking at this right-hand triangle, if only I knew this angle here, then I could use the cosine rule in that triangle. So how can I find this shaded angle here? Well, that shaded angle is equal to that shaded angle because they're vertically opposite. So how can I find that shaded angle in the left-hand triangle? Well, looking at the left-hand triangle, I've got a corresponding size and angle here. So I could use the sine rule, and I could use the sine rule along with that and that. So I'm going to start by finding that angle x. So using the sine rule, I'm going to have sine x over 24 is going to equal sine 64 over 31. Right, multiply both sides by 24, and then inverse sine tells you that x is 44.09 degrees. Okay, so that angle there is 44.09. Right, now I can find this shaded angle here, the angle ACB. Angle ACB, because it's 180, subtract 64, subtract 44.09. So that angle is going to be 71.9. So that means that this angle here is 71.9. And now I can use the cosine rule on that right-hand triangle. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. So that's going to be a squared equals 16 squared plus 19 squared minus 2 times 16 times 19 multiplied by cos of 71.9. Good. Bit of calculator action, and you can work out that a squared is 428 point something something something. So you can square root that, and you'll find that a is equal to 20.69, but I'm asked for a correct to 3 significant figures, so my answer is 20.7 centimetres. And that is question 16 complete. Question 16. Right, there's lots of information on the diagram, and I am being asked to find out the length of DE, which I'll call A. Now, looking at this right-hand triangle, if only I knew this angle here, then I could use the cosine rule in that triangle. So how can I find this shaded angle here? Well, that shaded angle is equal to that shaded angle because they're vertically opposite. So how can I find that shaded angle in the left-hand triangle? Well, looking at the left-hand triangle, I've got a corresponding size and angle here. So I could use the sine rule, and I could use the sine rule along with that and that. So I'm going to start by finding that angle x. So using the sine rule, I'm going to have sine x over 24 is going to equal sine 64 over 31. Right, multiply both sides by 24, and then inverse sine tells you that x is 44.09 degrees. Okay, so that angle there is 44.09. Right, now I can find this shaded angle here, the angle ACB. Angle ACB, because it's 180, subtract 64, subtract 44.09. So that angle is going to be 71.9. So that means that this angle here is 71.9. And now I can use the cosine rule on that right-hand triangle. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. So that's going to be a squared equals 16 squared plus 19 squared minus 2 times 16 times 19 multiplied by cos of 71.9. Good. Bit of calculator action, and you can work out that a squared is 428 point something something something. So you can square root that, and you'll find that a is equal to 20.69, but I'm asked for a correct to 3 significant figures, so my answer is 20.7 centimetres. And that is question 16 complete. Question 17, proportion. Now I'm told that y is inversely proportional to the root of x. So y is k divided by root x, where k is a constant. Right. Now, I think that this second line is going to help me to find k, because it tells me that y is c to the power 4 when x is c squared. So I can simply substitute those values in. So instead of y, I've got c to the 4 equals k over the square root, not of x, but of c squared. Now let's see if I can simplify that. So that tells me that c to the 4 is k divided by c, multiply both sides by c, and k is equal to c to the power of 5. Good. Now, if I come back to my original equation here, which is y is k divided by root x, instead of writing k there, I can just write c to the power 5, because I know that k is equal to c to the power 5. So now I've got y equals c to the power 5 over the square root of x, and the question asks me to find a formula for y in terms of x and c, which I've done there. So that is number 17 complete. Question 18. The function f is such that f of x is k over x. Express the inverse function. Well, if you're going to do that the other way around, you're simply going to do f dash of x is k over x. Right, find the g of minus 2. Well, g of x is 2 minus 3x to the power 4, so the g of minus 2 is 2 minus 3 times minus 2 to the 4. You could do that on your calculator as long as you're careful to put that negative into the bracket with the power, or you can simply know that 3 times negative to an even power is going to be positive. Gives me 3 times 16, which gives me 2 minus 48, which gives me minus 46. Okay, part 2. In this case, I've got g of x is 2 minus 3x to the 4, and I need to h that. So I'm going to h 2 minus 3x to the power 4, which is going to be 3 times 2 minus 3x to the power 4, all over 2 minus 3x to the power 4. And I need to simplify that, so my numerator becomes 6 minus 9x to the 4, and my denominator is 2 minus 2 plus 3x to the 4. I can simplify my denominator there, so there's the numerator. The denominator is 3x to the power 4. Now, can I simplify that fraction? Yes, I can. Divide top and bottom by 3. Leaves me with that as my answer to part 2. And that is question 18 complete. Question 19 is all about approximations and lower bounds and upper bounds. Let's have a look. The acceleration of an object is given by this formula, and I've been given v, u, and t to certain degrees of accuracy. By considering bounds, work out the value of a to a suitable degree of accuracy. Show you're working clearly and give a reason for your answer. Right, well, let's first of all consider the bounds, shall we? Now, v is correct to 2 decimal places, which means that its upper bound is going to be 45.235, and its lower bound is going to be 45.225. Similarly, u is correct to 2 decimal places, so its upper bound is going to be 5.125 and its lower bound 5.115. And now let's consider t, which is 8.5 correct to 2 significant figures. So its upper bound is 8.55 and its lower bound 8.45. Okay, now we have to work out the value of a to a suitable degree of accuracy. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out the lowest possible value of a, and we're going to work out the highest possible value of a and see what happens. Now, if I want the lowest possible value of a, I need to consider which values of u and v and t I'd choose. If I want the lowest possible value, I want the lowest possible number on the top of that fraction. So I'm going to choose the lowest v and the highest u. So then the difference between them is as small as possible. And if I want the lowest possible answer, I'm going to divide by the biggest possible number. In the same way, I'm now going to consider how I would find the highest possible value of a. Well, I'm going to want the highest denominator on this fraction, so I'll choose the highest v and the lowest u, so the difference between them is as large as possible. And then I'll divide by the smallest possible number, so my answer is as large as possible. So now let's go back over to the left, and let's work out what the lowest possible a is. So I need the lowest possible v, which is 45.225, subtract the highest possible u, divided by the highest possible t. Now, if I work that out on my calculator, I get a lowest possible value of A of 4.6900, and so on. Now let's do the same on the right-hand side. I want the highest possible value of A, so I choose the highest V, 45.235, the lowest U, 5.115, and the lowest T, 8.45. Put all that in my calculator, and I get the answer 4.7479. Now, what can I say about the value of A? I know the value of A to the nearest whole is going to be 5, because this version gives me a value of 5, and that version gives me a value of 5. Can I take it to one decimal place? Well, this version gives me a value of 4.7 to one decimal place, and this value also gives me a value of 4.7 to one decimal place. So that's looking good. Can I take it to two decimal places? I can't, because if I take each of those answers to two decimal places, I'm going to get a different answer. So what can I say about the value of A? I can say that A is definitely 4.7 to one decimal place, but I can't take it any further. And so I'm best off saying that A is 4.7 to one decimal place, because both of my possible answers give me 4.7 to one decimal place. Question 20. I've got a cylinder here. I'm told its radius is x centimeters, so it's the area of the cross-section is pi times x squared. I'm told its height, and the volume of the cylinder is to be V, and I've got to find the maximum volume of V, the maximum value of the volume. So let's start by writing an expression for the volume. The volume is going to be the area of the cross-section multiplied by the height. Okay, let's expand that bracket. Lots of cancelling there, gives me 800x minus pi x cubed. Now I have to find the maximum volume, the maximum value of V. So I'm going to differentiate V with respect to x, which will give me 800 minus 3 pi x squared, of course. Now, I need to find what values of x will maximize the volume. So I'm going to find what values of x make that differential equal to 0. Right, so I'm solving this equation now. So x squared is going to be 800 divided by 3 pi, and the value of x, which makes that differential equal to 0, is the square root of 800 over 3 pi, which, by the way, is 9.21. So the volume is at its maximum when x is 9.21. And in the question, I'm asked to find what that maximum value of V is going to be. What is that maximum volume? So the maximum volume will be the value of the volume, which is pi x squared multiplied by 800 over pi x minus x. It'll be the value of that expression when x is 9.21. So if I substitute x in here, I'm going to work out pi times 9.21 squared multiplied by 800 divided by pi times 9.21 minus 9.21. And I'm going to put that in my calculator and get the answer 4,913.6, and so on. And so that's the maximum volume, but I'm asked to give it to the nearest whole number. So the maximum volume of the cylinder is 4,914 cubic centimeters to the nearest whole number. Question 21. I've got the cross-section of a circular water pipe here. Okay, and I've got the shaded region represents the water. Here it is, W for water. I'm told the flow rate of the water, and I have to work out the volume of the water that flows through the pipe in 3 minutes. Okay, so let's first of all find the cross-sectional area. Well, let's find this area here. To do that, I'm going to find the area of that triangle. Now that triangle is simply an isosceles triangle because both of those are radiuses, 4.8 and an angle of 72. So I can use my formula that the area of the triangle is a half AB multiplied by sine C. So that's going to be a half times 4.8 times 4.8 times sine 72. So the area of my triangle is 10.956, and so on. Now to find the area of the water, I'm going to find the area of that sector of a circle. It's a fifth of the circle, isn't it? The whole sector there. So the area of the sector is going to be a fifth of pi times 4.8 squared. So the area of the sector is 14.476. Hence that cross-sectional area of the water is the area of the sector. Subtract the area of the triangle, 3.52. Now, in a second, a volume of water is going to flow through the pipe. It's going to be in a shape. It looks like that, and it is 14 centimeters long because the flow rate is 14 centimeters a second. So the volume of water which is going to flow through the pipe in a second is going to be that cross-sectional area. The volume in a second is going to be the cross-sectional area multiplied by 14. Okay, so the volume in 180 seconds, 3 minutes, is going to be 3.52 times 14, the amount that flows through in 1 second, multiplied by 180. So, on my calculator, that gives me 8,871.55 and so on cubic centimeters of water in a 3-minute time period. And to correct to 3 significant figures, that's 8,870 cubic centimeters of water flowing through the pipe in the 3 minutes. Question 22. The first term in our arithmetic sequence is 2t plus 1. The nth term of the arithmetic sequence is 14t minus 5. The common difference is 3. And here's the last fact. The sum of the first n terms, which by the way is n over 2, lots of 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference, is p lots of qt minus 1 to the power of r. Brilliant. There's all the information. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. Looking on the left-hand side here at this information, I've got an expression for the nth term. But I also know that the nth term can be written as the first term plus n minus 1 differences. And of course, the difference is 3. So I can simplify that to 2t plus 1 plus 3n minus 3, which I can again simplify to 2t plus 3n minus 2. Now I've got one expression for the nth term and another expression for the nth term. So I can put those two expressions equal to each other. So 14t minus 5 will equal 2t plus 3n minus 2. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm going to get an expression for n, which then I'm going to substitute into this. So let's get an expression for n. 3n on the right-hand side is 12t minus 3. So n is 40 minus 1. Great. Right, so let's shove that value of n into my sum of the first n terms. So s of 40 minus 1 is going to be n, 40 minus 1, over 2. Lots of twice a, well that's twice 2t plus 1. So that's 4t plus 2 plus n minus 1. Well, n minus 1 is 4t minus 2 times by d, which is 3. So that's an expression for the nth term with 4t minus n substituted in, 4t minus 1 substituted in for n. Let's simplify this. So what shall I do? I'm going to leave this outside the bracket and simplify the bracket first. 4t plus 2 plus 12t minus 6. Let's do some more simplifying of that bracket. So that's going to be 16t minus 4. Okay, so I need to multiply this out now. So I'm going to have 4t minus 1 multiplied by 8t minus 2. I've simply multiplied by the half already. So I can expand that bracket. But by the way, before I do this, of course, all of this is equaling p lots of qt minus 1 to the power of r. Let's worry about that in a moment. Let's multiply out this bracket here. 4 8's 32. 32t squared minus 8t minus 8t minus 16t plus 2. And that apparently equals p lots of qt minus 1 to the power of r. Well, looking at the left-hand side, I can take out a 2. So that's 2 lots of 16t squared minus 8t plus 1. And that apparently equals p lots of qt minus 1 to the power r. Well, maybe the p is the 2. I wonder if I could simplify this bracketed expression at all. Looking at that, I can see that that is 4t minus 1 times 4t minus 1. And apparently that equals p lots of qt minus 1 to the power of r. Hey, look at that. That's 2 lots of 4t minus 1 squared. And apparently that equals p lots of qt minus 1 to the power r. Now I can just read off my values. P is 2, q is 4, and r is 2. And there we are. Bit of a marathon, but that is that question sorted out. Question 22. Question 23. Right. A, B, C is a kite with AB equaling AD and CB equaling CD. So I'm going to draw a kite because generally it helps in these longer questions to have a diagram. So A, B, C, D, equal side, equal side, equal side, equal side. Good. Now point B has coordinates K1. So I'm going to write K1 here. Okay, K is a negative constant. The point D over here has coordinates 8, 7. Great. And the straight line L passes through the points B and D. Right, let me draw in this straight line L, then I'll do it in red. Here it is. Okay, right, good. Okay, there it is, straight line L. The straight line L is parallel to this line. Find an equation of AC. So I'm being asked to find an equation, not of L, but I'm being asked to find the equation of AC, which is going to look like this. There we go, the equation of the line AC. Now it's a kite, so it might not be a very good drawing, but I know that this is a right angle. Now I couldn't find the equation of the line AC, which I'll call L2. But I can find the equation of line L because I've got 2 points on that. And I know its gradient. Right, so let's concentrate on the straight line L. It's parallel to this line. So I can find the gradient of this line by writing it with y as the subject. So the gradient of the line to which L is parallel is 3/5. So that must also be the gradient of L, because they're parallel. Good. Now I also know a point on the line L. I know the point 8, 7. So that means that I can work out the equation of the line L, because it's going to be 3/5 of x plus c. To work out what c is, I'm going to stick in the point I know. 7 equals 3/5 times x plus c. Right, if you fiddle around with that, you will find that c is equal to 11/5. And so the equation of the line L is y equals 3/5 of x plus 11/5. So that's the equation of the line L. That's helpful, but I'm being asked to find the equation of the line from A to C, or L2, on my diagram. Now, what do I know about L2? I know its gradient now. L2. I know its gradient is the negative reciprocal, so its gradient is minus 5 over 3. But I don't know a point on the line. I know it goes through here, which is the midpoint of B and D, but I don't know what B is. But I could find what B is, because B lies on the line L. So I can find the coordinates of B, because point B lies on this line. And I know that the y coordinate is 1. So y must equal 3/5 times k plus 11 over 5. Okay, if you solve that equation, you will find that k equals minus 2. So B is the point minus 2, 1. Right, minus 2, 1. Now I can find the coordinates of this point, which I'll call E, because it's the midpoint of B and D. Then I've got a point on the line AC as well as its gradient. So let's find the point E. The point E is going to have an x-coordinate, which is halfway between minus 2 and 8. So it's going to have an x-coordinate of 3. And it's going to have a y-coordinate halfway between 1 and 7, which is 4. So there's a point on the line L2. So here we go. Here's my details about L2. I know its gradient, and I know a point on the line. So now I can go ahead and find the equation of L2. L2 is going to be y equals minus 5 over 3 multiplied by x plus c. And how am I going to find c? Well, I'm going to use the point I know, the point 3, 4. So I know that y is 4 when x is 3. Well, that works out rather nicely because the 3's cancel. So I'm going to end up with c being 9. So the gradient of the equation of L2 is y equals minus 3/5 x plus 9. Now, does it tell me to give the equation answer in a particular form? Yes, it does. It says, could you please give the answer in the form px plus qy equals r. So I'm going to move those x's onto the other side. So 5/3 of x plus y equals 9. And there is my solution. Unless, of course, it wants, p, q, and r are integers. So I multiply everything by 3. 5x plus 3y equals 27. Right, now have I done what it says? I think that I have. Px plus qy equals r. And there is the solution to question 23. Question 24. Right, I know this information down here, and I know that AB, the ratio of AB to BD is 1 to 2, so BD is double AB. Let's start off by finding AB, and then doubling that to find BD. So AB, if I start on A, it's going to be minus 2A to get down to O, and plus 2B. So that's 2B minus 2A. So BD is double that, 4B minus 4A. Let's just write those in here. So this one is going to be 2B minus 2A, and this one is 4B minus 4A. Right, now this question is all about the point C. and I'm asked to find the ratio of OC to CE. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find some different ways of expressing O to C. Now, one way of expressing O to C is that it is a certain fraction of OE. So let's find OE. Okay, to find OE, I'm going to take myself up to B and then up to E. I know what it is to B, but I don't know what BE is. Oh, but I bet I can find out BE. Let's have a look. BE. To do BE, I'm going to go from B to D, which is 4B minus 4A. And then I'm going to make my way up from D to E, 7A plus 3B. Right, so BE is 7B plus 3A. Right, so I originally said I was going to find OE. So to go from O to E, I'm going to make myself my way up to B. So that's going to be 2B there. And then I'm going to go from B to E. So I'm going to add on 7B plus 3A, which altogether gives me 9B plus 3A. So that's what OE is. And O to C will be a certain fraction of that. Now, you're probably quite used to using lambdas and mu's here. I'm going to say that OC is mu, that fraction of OE. Good. Now, there's another way that I can find my way from O to C, and that is to use BC. Now, I don't know what proportion of BA BC is, but I know that BA is 2A minus 2B, the negative of AB. And so I'm going to imagine that BC is lambda of that, a certain fraction of that, lambda of that. So now I'm going to write an expression for OC using that BC. So OC will be, go from O up to B, which is a movement of 2B, plus this lambda lots of 2A minus 2B. Now I've got two expressions for OC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them equal to each other. So I've got mu lots of 9B plus 3A, and that equals 2B plus lambda lots of 2A minus 2B. Now you're probably thinking, but wait a minute, we've got one equation here with two unknowns, because I have got two unknowns. I've got mu and lambda. But the thing is, I know that these two expressions are equal to each other. So I know that the coefficient of B on one side has to equal the coefficient of B on the other. And I know that the coefficient of A on one side has to equal the coefficient of A on the other. So let's see what happens. I'm going to multiply out this bracket on the left. Gives me 9 mu B plus 3 mu A equals 2B plus 2 lambda A minus 2 lambda B. On the left-hand side, I can already see what the coefficient of B is and the coefficient of A. On the right-hand side, I'm going to need to do a little more manipulation. For B, I've got, how many B's have I got? I've got 2B minus 2 lambda B. And then I've got 2 lambda A. So if I just make that a little clearer, 9 mu B plus 3 mu A. Now what B's have I got here? Well, my coefficient on B as a whole is 2 minus 2 lambda plus 2 lambda A. Now I can see by looking at my coefficients that the coefficients of A have to be the same. So that means that 3 mu must equal 2 lambda. And it also means that 9 mu must equal 2 minus 2 lambda. Okay, now I've got two equations and two unknowns. So I can solve these to find mu and lambda. Well, I'm going to add both equations because I see that on the right hand side, I've got 2 lambda, look, and minus 2 lambda, so they're going to disappear. So if I add the equations, I get 12 mu equals 2, so mu equals a sixth. Brilliant. Now I could now go ahead and work out lambda by using one of the other equations. But actually, in this case, all I need is mu, because the question is saying, use the vector to find the ratio of OC to OE. And I have assumed at the beginning that OC is going to be mu times OE. So OC is obviously a sixth of OE, a sixth of the whole distance. And I asked for the ratio OC to CE. Well, if OC is a sixth of OE, then OC must be 1 to 5, because then OC is a sixth of the whole distance. So that is the ratio of OC to CE. And that is the end of the paper. Mr. Wright here, well done for getting to the end of the paper and the end of the film. You're probably wondering what grade you might have got, and in front of you are the grade boundaries for this pair of papers. And to work out what grade you would have got, you simply have to add up both of your marks on each of the papers. So you have a mark out of 200, and then you can read off the table what grade you might have got. If you wanted to, you could, I guess, make a rough approximation and assume that you're going to score as many marks on paper 2 as you did on this paper 1. So double your mark on the paper 1 to give you an idea of what you might score out of 200, as long as you do the same on both papers. Right, I hope you found the film useful. Please leave me a comment. Tell me how you got on. I love to hear how you got on. And please let me know if you found the film useful, perhaps even by hitting the like button. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, then you will get a notification every time I release a similar film. See you in the next film.